From beautiful downtown Sacramento, it's time for Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.
Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Fort Bingo. Spazzy's got a show when you really want to know what's going on. Yeah. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. Fort Bingo. Art, music, golden view, and your favorite comics too. Grab a spot and settle in, 'cause it's high time we begin. Beach Blanket Fort Bingo Podcast. Yeah.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. My name is Steve Schnee, and I'd first like to introduce you to my trusted co-host. He looks like your typical alternative rock star, but he smells like a bologna sandwich. He's the cool in Kool-Aid. He's the dynamic of this duo, and his name is Ronnie Barnett.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me yet again.
Our special guest is an artist that both Ronnie and I have been fans of for over 4 decades. He's 1/4 of legendary Belfast, Ireland-born pop combo, the Starjets, who have reunited and just released brand new music. We are delighted to have him on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm round of applause to Paul Bowen.
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
Nice to meet you out there in the World Wide Web.
Well, before we talk about the new recordings and everything, I want to go back to the beginning. And that's the question I like to ask people is, do you remember the exact moment that you were inspired to become a musician? Was it one thing or was it a series of events?
Ooh, tough question. Very good question. I'm trying to think. It would have been seeing bands on the TV. It would have been seeing the Beatles. It would have been seeing our local hero, Van Morrison, for the first time, when Van actually used to smile. He had a full head of hair, no money in the bank, but he had a smile on his face. And now he's got $78-80 million at least in the bank, no hair on his head, and he never smiles. So there's got to be a moral in that somewhere. So yes, it was actually seeing, and in fact, Van's first song, which was the remaking of Muddy Waters' "Baby Please Don't Go," that was the one. That's a song that stayed with me all my life. That song had such an effect, and that had, of course, Jimmy Page on guitar in the initial recording. So it was things like that, and then hearing Creedence Clearwater Revival and thinking, maybe I could play like that. That's not too technical, not too difficult. So that was the start of it.
When the band formed in Belfast in 76, what was the local music scene like?
Non-existent. We had, because Belfast was literally split in two with the two tribes, the Catholic and Protestant tribes of Belfast, and they were at war with one another. And we had an army presence in the streets. It was very, very difficult to navigate your way through the musical, find other musicians other than in your immediate locality. I was fortunate enough to work have a Saturday job in a department store in the center of Belfast. And there I met Protestant musicians, and we formed a strong friendship that exists to this day. And I was able to sort of play with them undercover over in their side of town. And then we had our little band, the Starjets. We changed names every 3 months.
What was the first name? What was the first name you guys had?
I think we were called Spike, Spike. And that was because that our singer at the time had a van. That was a very valuable asset for for a band. And his father ran a fruit and vegetable shop in West Belfast. So we had the vegetable van on Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays if we managed to get a gig, which we were fortunate enough to do on many occasions. But we had to put our equipment in with the potatoes, the carrots, cabbages,
Mhm.
sprouts, and so on and so forth.
So Starjets was your first band. That's
Yeah, it was. We were all together. I mean, we've known each other since early childhood, since primary school, just after kindergarten school. So we live very, very close to one another in Belfast. And we hung out together as friends before we played football. And we then formed a band together in the mid 1970s under various names until it became the Starjets with a solidified lineup.
When you guys came together, had punk infiltrated your area? I mean, were you thinking of yourself as a punk band, a pop band, or just rock and roll?
We were just thought of ourselves as we just loved to play music. But when punk came along, it was so exciting. And one of the big punk bands of the day, one of the first punk bands, was the Boomtown Rats from Dublin.
Mhm.
And we just loved the Boomtown Rats. Their very first single, Looking After Number One, was just a phenomenon to us. So
Mhm.
we very quickly adopted that, or got swept up by the enthusiasm of punk and became the band that we are. But, no one would describe us as a pure punk band because we sing and we play our instruments, and that actually worked very much to our disadvantage when we came to London because we were in many ways unfashionable. I'll give you a great example. There was a DJ, very highly respected, revered DJ, John Peel in London, the BBC. He was a pillar of the BBC. Lovely man. I had a lot of time for him. And when we came to London and got a record deal, I walked into the bar where he went with his producer before he did his evening show 5 nights a week at the BBC. Introduced myself. Hello, John. I'm Paul from the Starjets. We're a band from Belfast. We have a record. Can I give you a copy? And he said, very nice. He said, yeah, please. And he bought me a pint. We sat down, we chatted. And I went back a week later to see him, and he sat me down, bought me a pint again, and he said, I'm not going to play your music. And I said, why? He said, because I don't like it. Well, what's wrong with it? And he said, well, you can all sing in tune and you can play your instruments, so you don't really fit with what I seek for my, and he gave a kind of a lecture, and I was crestfallen, obviously, but he said, you don't have the innocence that I'm looking for people who can barely play their instruments. This is what I want. And I said, well, our innocence was long beaten out of us because we grew up in a civil war, and innocence doesn't last very long in a situation like that. So I accepted that and walked away. But others picked up on us, and to this day, one of our dearest friends is the DJ Mike Reed, who is a host on Nation Radio UK, which is one of the few stations I've come across that plays heritage artists, to give it its term. That's people who have been around a while but wouldn't get playlisted on any major record show or record station, radio station, today, because we just don't fit. And Nation Radio UK plays all old songs by people that have been around. And just tonight, we made #1 on the UK Heritage chart last Sunday, and we were knocked off the chart today by Alice Cooper.
I know a place where we can go to spend the day. Everybody's busy and it's just another weekend. See a kind of kid and there's another on the way. Oh, what a life this could be. I'm not carrying on. You better believe me.
No, it's true because you guys are clearly not a punk band. I mean, it's sophisticated songwriting. You have fancy chords. Like John Peel said, you can sing. Yeah.
Well, your live sets included covers of the Archie Sugar Sugar,
Yeah,
Beatles, Please Please Me. Now, did you perform them, ironically, or are these things because you just love good pop?
we loved them. We loved them. We did. We did a lot of Beatles songs. We did "This Boy," which was basically
Wow.
four-part harmony, and
Yeah.
it again this worked to our disadvantage because people wanted raw. They wanted theatrical anger in the music in the punk scene, and we didn't have it. We were a good live band. That's why people liked us. They still do, and that was our asset. That was in fact perhaps the only with good songs. I mean, there's no denying Liam and Terry and John wrote fabulous songs. And to be honest, I couldn't write a song to save my life at the time. I write a bit better now, but it's taken a few decades.
Yeah, well, the band, the Starjets that we know, consisted of you on guitar and vocals, Terry Sharpe on guitar and vocals,
Yeah.
and then there was also Sean Martin and Liam Lestrange, right?
Liam Lestrange, yeah. He was the one who wrote It's a Shame. He wrote Cheryl Leo. He wrote a few other ones. Did he write Stand by 19? He really was the dark horse. He played the drums and very rudimentary guitar, but he just could come up with something special. He really could.
Were you annoyed at the time because you were called the Bay City Rollers of punk, or is that a badge of honor?
No, we were annoyed with that because we tried to forge our own identity. But
Yeah.
as I say, the English press were quite vehemently against us. There were a few people within the English music press who liked us for what we were, but those who felt they knew us better or they knew better were the ones who dismissed us out of hand, and they certainly did because some of the reviews were scathing. I mean, some of the live reviews, and I thought, well, why are people being so nasty? Because the crowd and the people that were there
Yeah.
liked us. So but that's the kind of nature of the music press. They want to be the ones who pontificate from on high as to what others are,
Yeah. Yeah.
what you got to put up with.
Who were the punk bands that you guys found yourself on bills with?
Well, Stiff Little Fingers were the
Yeah.
primary one. We supported, goodness me, the UK Subs, the Ruts DC. We didn't get we were supposed to support the Squeeze as well, but that would have been a great double bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Definitely.
they pulled out. We ended up doing a tour with the Tubes from Arizona, Fee Waybill, and that was wonderful because they were so theatrical. They were just mad as a box of frogs.
Those bills make sense. How did you go over with when you opened for the UK Subs? Like, how did that?
We went down very well. I mean,
Okay.
we went down very well, and with Stiff Little Fingers, obviously. But to be honest, when we saw Stiff Little Fingers for the first time, I thought the writing was on the wall in that this was the way a band should be. The penny had finally dropped, that this was the kind of way to play your music, stripped down, bare, no harmonies or anything else. And then, of course, the music scene was changing so very quickly in England. It went from punk in 76, 77 to power pop 78. Well, it still lasted, but by the time 1980 rolled around, you had Gary Newman with Tubeway Army and the beginnings of electropop. And then you had the New Romantics, Spandau Ballet and the Human League. And again, a huge extension there on throughout the 80s of electropop. So
Oh no, it's a shame. The more I see it now, it's a shame. The less I like it now, it's a shame. You're falling out of my love.
When did the whole band decide to move to London, and was it difficult to leave Belfast?
77. Well, I had a place, a small flat, small apartment in London. So I went over and I said, lads, there's a lot happening in London. This is the place to be. And for me, obviously, it wasn't difficult because I'd been at college in London. And they came over and we all stayed together for a while until the lads found their feet. They got their own apartments. But it was a great start because we really hit the ground running, not in terms of commercial success, but we were doing a lot of gigs. Just all around the punk venues in London. All the music venues in London were punk venues at that time, apart from the Royal Albert Hall and so on and so forth. But it was a marvelous scene, and it just was so easy to play and to get work and to play in front of people because people were coming out and going to gigs. Whereas today it's very, very well. Regardless of COVID, it's difficult because people are used to the insularity of having headphones in and being on their phone or their computer. So the live music scene is very, very different today.
I mean, you played with a lot of great bands at that time, like the Fabulous Poodles.
Oh yeah.
And what other bands were you playing with in London at the time?
Another band called Fisher's Ed. I would have
huge Fisher's Ed fan here.
Yeah, and there was a fabulous London band called The Breaks, and they played in a kind of Americana style. They were Tom Petty. Again, they weren't fashionable because they weren't doing the angry young man and routine. So, but we played with them. We would go and see bands all the time. Every opportunity we would go to see. And there was a marvelous band that disappeared after one single, and they were the most charismatic band I'd ever seen in my life. And they were called the Hammersmith Gorillas.
I've only heard of them.
Yeah. The record wasn't anything like the live show. The guy, main singer, was called Jesse, and he was absolutely mesmerizing to watch. I'd never seen anything like it in my life, and to this day, haven't.
You were signed to Epic Records by Muff Winwood. Was there a bidding war at the time?
Not at all. Not at all. But our regret, and my personal regret, was that we didn't sign to Stiff Records because they wanted us, and Stiff were so fashionable. I mean, Elvis Costello, Reckless Eric, Nick Lowe. So they had a whole roster of very, very cool acts, and they wanted us. But we gotten ourselves a manager by then who said, no, let's talk to some of the big boys. And as a result, we were very far down the ladder in the major record company that we'd signed to, because at the time they were used to dealing with the likes of Billy Joel and the big American rock acts. And we were an unknown and untested and untried quantity. So there wasn't much support for the Starjets. In fact, the only reason War Stories broke as a single was because I did exactly what I'd done to John Peel. I walked around the radio stations. I sat in the foyer until a DJ would come in. I would introduce myself and give him the single War Stories, and I would say, look, if you don't like it, if it's not for you, maybe you could pass it on to somebody who does like it, or throw it in the bin. And that's how it started, because we had CBS told us, oh yeah, we'll get the marketing squad on, it'll be there. And 2 weeks after the single was released, I phoned up our local record shop in Belfast, and they hadn't got the single. So I knew that CBS were doing Epic were doing exactly as they had done prior to that.
Cover is iconic to me. I mean, I put this with, like, Pretender's first album. I love this cover, but it's kind of a punk. It kind of portrays you as a punk band. I know it's not a brick wall; it's a tin fence or whatever. But
yeah, it is.
You're lined up there. It's black and white. It's graffiti and stuff. Like, you think that did it a disservice? You think it turned off?
We put the graffiti there ourselves. It was the tin fence, the metal fence was there for years, absolute years, because right behind the fence is a railway station that they had been refurbing, and had only the refurb only finished maybe 15 years ago. So that fence was there a long time, and it's on a main route heading west out of London, but it's always snagged up and snarled with traffic, so everybody saw it.
The fence is gone now?
Yeah, it's gone. It's gone.
I'd love to have a piece of it for the room here.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, I bought this, back then, the Jam introduced me to this whole new world of music in 1978. After that, I just kept buying every album that had a cover that appealed to me. The band had "the" in front of the name.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw this cover. It's very rare that you're going to see a band during that era where the members are smiling, because they always had that dour, kind of like serious, pretentious look. But no, this one just cries out, "Dude, buy me!" To me, it's like that first Undertones album, the UK version and the American version, which I think are both very iconic. When you were heading into the studio, did you have this huge surplus of songs and then had to whittle them down to the ones that made the album?
Yeah, we did indeed. We tried a lot of different things. I mean, we done a demo in Belfast, and we brought it over to London with us in '77 and handed it around the record companies. Again, just trying to walked in somebody's office, head office, because you could do that in those days. And so we had that, and we had a number of songs, and then songs were written at the time and discarded, and other songs came to the forefront, and that's how we compiled the album. But basically, the album was our live set. We'd been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah.
And we went in with two different producers because we were disappointed that the first producer, who was a lovely guy called Pip Williams, he produced Status Quo, but he never came to see us live. Whereas the second producer was David Batchelor, who had produced the Skids' first album. And that to me was another eye-opener, because when I first heard the guitar part in Into the Valley, Stuart Adamson's guitar part, I went, oh my God, listen to this. And again, this is just fabulous stuff. So we got David Batchelor, and he was millimeter, man. He would literally take a song and what if we took this little snippet out and just left that to the side and put something in here? And it was very, for us who wanted to get going, and it was very, not tedious, but it was hard work to try and come to his way of thinking. And that produced War Stories, it produced Any Danger Love. Pip Williams did the nice pop songs that were just straight harmonies and all the rest, but David Batchelor gave us a bit of edge because he knew what he was doing. He worked, his brother was the keyboard player in the sensational Alex Harvey band.
Wow, okay.
And he had produced the sensational Alex Harvey band.
Right.
So he also produced Oasis demos. The first demos that Oasis did, he produced those.
Wow.
So he's a pretty good guy, but very slow.
What about Rhett Davis? What did he produce on the album?
I'm not sure now. That's a name I haven't heard in decades. Rhett.
Because he's listed on a lot of the things that I read as being a producer of something on the album.
No, the album was produced by Pip Williams and David. John Eden was the engineer. Rhett Davis, I think we did a couple of tracks with Rhett Davis. We were naive in that we didn't know how we wanted the sound.
Yeah.
And Pip actually said years later, he said, I really regret not coming to see you guys live, because I would have had a better idea of what you were about. So, that's okay. We live with who we are and what we've done in our lives.
Here she comes again. Here she comes walking all by again. I know I shouldn't cry again. I can't believe we're through. Here she comes again. Break
first single, Here She Comes Again, was actually set for release, but was like withdrawn. And neither side of the single were released at the time, either on the album. But I do know that Paul Shuttleworth recorded from Cursor Flyers. He recorded a version of Here She Comes Again.
Is that right? I didn't know that. No.
For Epic in 1979.
I absolutely didn't know that. I remember the Cursor Flyers. It's nice meeting you guys because I'm learning an awful lot here that I didn't know. I mean, Red Davies was a name, and I'll have to look that up now.
Maybe. It's amazing there's two different distinct producers because it's seamless. I never even really thought about there being different producers on this record.
Like, in my opinion, and correct me here, Paul, but I think that I'm So Glad. Did Pip produce that?
He did indeed, yeah.
Because that sounds like a cleaner, less aggro, and more harmonies.
Yeah, there's doo-wop influence. I detect in that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so different. But that was the song that the music critics in London absolutely loathed. They loathed it. They said it was like a bad song by Jerry and the Pacemakers or some north of England 60s band. So,
but you see, that's one of the songs that I absolutely love off of that album, because you hear this like doo-wop thing, and then towards the end it has that ripping guitar solo, which kind of almost seems out of place, sort of like the guitar solo on the Carpenters.
Goodbye to Love.
Yeah.
Yes. He fabulous guitar player. Oh, he passed away a few years ago. I was searching for him. Isn't it Tony Peluso?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tony Peluso.
Yeah. Goodbye to Love.
He was my hero. My fingers bled as in Bryan Adams' The Summer of '69 on that guitar solo. Because I didn't know it at the time. We used to hit our guitars so hard that I used strings that Stevie Ray Vaughan would have used. And I have a skinny little wrist, whereas Stevie Ray Vaughan was like Popeye, he had forearms like Popeye.
Oh yeah, just shake those big piano strings that he had on the guitar.
I had big piano strings on my guitar too, but I couldn't.
I'm so glad, I'm so glad that I found you. Don't care what they say or do, because I'm so glad I've really found someone like you.
You see, the first official single was It Really Doesn't Matter.
Yeah.
And that really, in my opinion, revealed those bubblegum roots, but it didn't make the album. I mean, was that ever considered to be on the album?
I would suspect that Epic chose the tracks and decided which way the album would go.
And it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter at all.
We were heavily influenced by the Beach Boys. I mean, we listened to the Beach Boys because we love the harmonies, and to this day, I just love American harmonies. I love the way American singers can come together, whether it be country singers or whatever. And the Eagles have it, or Crosby, Stills, and Nash & Young certainly have it. The band America, Horse with No Name, is just one of the most mesmerizing songs I've ever heard.
You released a great series of singles. I mean, a small series, but Run with the Pack was this great influence, 50s influence, 10 years. But your best known track is War Stories. Do you think that things would have been different if maybe you had released that as the first single?
Well, that's academic, really. CBS chose the way it was. We were a very, 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 very small part of a labyrinthine organization, and as to what was going to happen, we just wanted to get out and play live, and if anything came of it, that was great. That was a boon. That was a benefit. So regarding the release of singles, we didn't have much of a say in it. The Epic decided, Muff Winwood decided what would go. So it was entirely up to him. Because in the early days, when we did release the first couple, Run with a Pack, we were a big size. We were a pop band. But then as the scene progressed and the music became towards the 1980 itself, darker, we had certainly become a bit heavier and darker ourselves, which is why Tango Brigade was formed, because the Starjets seemed to have run its course. Whereas I didn't agree with that. I thought we should have stayed that way, but Tango Brigade was the next step, because everyone else was doing electropop and music had become very dark. And certainly the bands from the north of England, like Cabaret Voltaire, the Comsat Angels from Sheffield, they were the way UK music was going. And especially, the north of England seemed to dominate and dictate the way that the music scene was going. The electro bands, Humanly out of Sheffield as well.
We're gonna save my soul. It's the old time low. Generals keep score. Soon be going home. War stories, Sergeant Fury. War stories, Captain Hurricane. War stories, Giant Red. More stories. This is it. This is it.
Did you guys tour the States when the
No,
album came
we
out?
didn't tour anywhere. This was the other thing that we went up and down the length and breadth of the UK and Ireland. We never went across the sea to Europe. We never went across the ocean to America. We didn't go anywhere, again, because I suspect it was because that we were a low priority and not worth investing in terms of putting a budget together to get us into Europe. We never went there. So that again kind of gave us a shortened career in terms of what we could achieve, because new music was coming on the scene in the UK and we hadn't left the UK. So
did you ever imagine back then, or even 10 years ago, that there were two knuckleheads from California who would still be talking about Starjets to each other and still trying to introduce their friends to Starjets?
See, I was always of the opinion that no one knew who we were. Seriously, I'm not making this up and I'm not trying to be modest. I really was of the opinion that I would say, if I was introduced to someone in England and my friend musician friend might say, oh, this is Paul, he played with a band called the Starjets. And it was always, who?
Yeah.
It was that. So I suspected, incorrectly as it turns out, that no one knew who we were. We were just, on the radar, and that was us.
The album came out in late 79. It is called God Bless Starjets, even though it says God Bless.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. What happened to that?
Epic took the away from us.
Well,
we're called the Starjets.
Yeah, let me tell you this. For 40 years, I've had to correct myself. I go, oh yeah, Starjets, because there's no the on the album cover. And I always, yeah. Well, I'm glad your shirt. Oh, show the audience your shirt.
There you go.
God bless the Starjets.
They're small.
Yeah. Now,
available from the website, thestarjets.com.
Nice.
The Starjets or just Starjets?
The Starjets.
Okay.
Hey Paul,
we've corrected a typo that's over 40 years old.
Finally. Paul, speaking of record company support, did they make any promo items for you, or?
The one surviving item I have, and I might have a little, lapel pin, but the one surviving item is very unfashionable. It's full of dust as well, as you can see. It's a Starjets ashtray.
Oh my God!
It's the only.
Does it say Starjets on every side, Paul? Can you?
It says the Starjets. Can you see that?
Oh, it says the. Yeah, nice.
See, even Epic Records were inconsistent.
what are your thoughts on the album today?
I like it. I mean, I listen to it, but there are other times I go, and ask any musician, he'll tell you, I wish we had maybe did something different there, here or there. So yeah, I mean, I don't regard a song as ever finished. I'm always, today, I will always tinker around with something I've done a year ago, 2 years ago. I would go, no, I could do this better, you know. So yeah, it's an album I'm proud of. I'm glad we got something out, but
yeah,
I always think it, you know, maybe the next one will be better. Who knows?
Well, in 1980, you released the single that I still can't pronounce, even though I've heard it a million times, Cheerileo.
Cheerileo, yeah.
And I thought it was an extension of the band's edgier sound, but it sounded a little even more sophisticated. But then you left the band after that single was released.
It was, they wanted to be Tango Brigade and I wanted to stay the Starjets, because I felt that, you know, we hadn't achieved, or maybe not achieved commercial success, but we hadn't fulfilled our potential. And so Tango Brigade was formed, and then our friend Pat Gribben, who was the guitar player back in the day with when the Starjets supported the Bay City Rollers, Pat came back in as guitar player for Tango Brigade, but they folded very, very quickly, because people who liked the Starjets liked us for what we did, which was sing and play, sing and do harmonies and enjoy ourselves live, whereas Tango Brigade was very, very much trying to be Tubeway Army, Gary Newman, and the electro bands of the 80s. And to me, it was a wrong move, because I know our talent and I know what we're capable of, and we were doing what we were capable of. But to make yourself something else just to try and fit in with the scene is always fraught with peril. There's always something that you won't quite achieve, because people, you know, if you're in the public consciousness, people know who you are, and they said, well, what are they trying to do now? It's like artists who will come out and they'll do a reggae album and then they'll do a heavy metal album. I mean, a great, most fabulous guitar player, Gary Moore from Belfast, started out with a band called Skid Row, not the well-known Skid Row. And then he joined Thin Lizzy, and then he went solo and he released a couple of solo albums. And then in the 1990s, he produced an album that sounded like Oasis and Fatboy Slim. And Gary's audience loved him for his blues guitar playing.
Yeah.
And so that album tanked, absolutely tanked. And for the same reason, Donegal didn't really. Donegal was a great song. But
yeah, it is.
It was so different from what Starjets had been doing up to then. And as unfashionable as we were, we may have remained unfashionable, but still true to ourselves. And that's the thing that got me. I wasn't happy with changing just for the sake of it, of trying to please the English music press.
Yeah, well, and then you alienate everybody. You alienate your old audience, and you don't gain the new audience.
Which is what we did. And certainly Epic gave us short shrift and dropped the band very, very quickly.
After you left the band, did you continue with music or?
I did. I played, I never gave up music. I mean, there may well have been years where music gave up me, but I kept playing and with different musicians. And then 88, 89, I thought about moving back to Ireland, but I didn't want to move to Belfast because Belfast was still in the state of war. So I moved to Dublin 1990, and I stayed in Dublin for most of the 1990s. And I had a band in Dublin called the Wild Spirits, and we recorded a little EP. And then I came back to London in 99, and I've been playing.
Now that's an EP that I have to start searching for.
Same here.
We're fans. You have to know that. You have to know that now I need that backdrop behind you. you know.
That is my little black Dubliner. That's the
Oh.
dog. I lived in the Guinness factory in Dublin, James's Gate.
Wow.
And they have a post office in the factory which the public can use, but it's primarily for Guinness's own external mail. And
Uh-huh.
I went in there Easter Tuesday 1994, and there was a little black dog in behind the counter. And I said to the postmaster, I said, "What's that dog doing in there?" And he said, "Well, he was shivering in the doorway this morning when we opened up." I said, "Well, what are you going to do with him?" He said, "We close at 6. He's gone back on the street." And I said, "But it's snowing outside." And he said, "Well, I can't leave him in here." So I said, "Have you got a piece of string?" And he said, "This is a parcel office. What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, put a bit of string around his neck and I'll take him home." So that's a cartoon version of a musician friend.
Oh, that's awesome.
Lived 16 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
Leave me alone, it's not me you want. I wanna run with it back now. Say what you like, but tonight, I'm gonna run with it back. Run with it back. I'm gonna run with it back. I'm gonna run with it back now.
Now, did you and the other band members stay in touch throughout the years?
We did indeed. Me and Terry have always been in touch. Liam was actually living in Dublin the same time as me for a very short while, and we never hooked up. But I'd always, because my brother knows them all. My brother has played football for years with Liam and a sort of little team in Belfast. And I always hear snippets of news. But Terry and I have been in touch a long time.
Surprisingly, Starjets reunited in 2019 and played some live shows. Is it the 4 originals? Is it Liam and Sean and Terry and you?
That is, yeah, and me, yeah.
Yeah. What inspired the reunion?
There is a little record company in Belfast called Spit Records, and they had released a demo that we'd done of Any Danger Love, and I can't remember what the other track on it was, but years ago this was. And Spit Records were going out of business, and they said, "We want to have a final night with the bands that are Belfast bands that are on our label. Will you play?" And I said, "Yeah, happy to." Straight away, "Yeah, love to." So that was it. And we've been in touch, and hopefully, despite COVID, we'll play whenever we can.
Oh, Jordy Best, you were truly blessed through all the highs and lows on the field of dreams. You had the world's beautiful feet. Oh, Jordy Best.
As we all know, your debut album was called God Bless Starjets, but your new release humorously is titled Please God Bless the Starjets. Can you tell us about the songs on the release?
Well, they will be remasters and re-recordings of the best songs from God Bless Starjets, because we would like to own our own, because, as I say, Epic we were not a priority for Epic, and I've actually been in touch through an intermediary to try and get some masters off them, and they don't want to know. So we decided that we would re-record the songs ourselves. At least that way we have ownership of them, and then we will put any new songs that we have on it. So there'll be maybe half a dozen of the old songs, and the rest will be new. And the song that we have at the moment, it was #1 in the charts until 7 p.m. 2 hours ago, is one called Jordy Best.
I just want to say, Paul, I watched a clip live of a recent gig. I mean, I guess it was 2019 probably. And the audience is so ecstatic. People they're singing, their arms in the air. They're happy as me and Steve are that you're back together. So I just want to say it's wonderful that you are back.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Well, how can viewers stay up to date on all things Starjets?
I would say our website, thestarjets.com.
Well, that's it with this episode of Beach Blanket Fort Bingo. I'd like to thank my co-host, Ronnie Barnett, Mr. Bologna Sandwich, and our very special guest, Mr. Paul Bowen from the Starjets. Remember to check out their new release, t-shirts and all that stuff. And what is the address again, Paul?
Pardon me, I'm just about to cough. Clear my voice. TheStarjets.com.
Yeah, remember the Starjets, not Starjets.
Starjets.
Yeah.
That was a 40-year-old typo there. You couldn't have made it easier for them when they got it wrong.
Anyway, that's it. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see y'all next time on Beach Blanket Fort Bingo.